Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into a brand new edition of the 365 Sports Newsletter, the Baylor edition. I'm Craig Smoak, and thanks for watching. As always, please hit that like and subscribe button, and go on over to 365sports.video to check out the Big 12 newsletter that drops every single Wednesday mid-morning into your inbox. You can sign up over there with the sign-in bar and check out the newsletter in website form. But 365sports.video. Support the Big 12 newsletter that drops each and every week. But in this particular newsletter, I've got contributors talking about the other schools in the league. On this video, we're talking about maybe 16th out of 16th now as we reach the end of the season when it comes to the Big 12, as far as momentum or lack thereof, as far as excitement or lack thereof, as far as just not feeling great about things. Baylor football going from a preseason favorite per some publications and some prognosticators to finishing arguably feeling the lowest of the low of any team in the league, with the season wrapping up for some. And for them, the season is wrapped up now with hopes of reaching a bowl game. Baylor finishes the season 5-7 with 3 games to try to get win number 6. They got pounded at McLean Stadium by a Utah team that unleashed Bird Ficklin like a Heisman Trophy winner. At Arizona, you fell in embarrassing fashion, getting completely obliterated in the second half after having a lead at halftime. And then this past week, a formula that was far too familiar: get down early, look a bit sloppy, and then try to rally in the fourth quarter and make things interesting. That's the formula. Get down early, look a bit sloppy, and then with just enough time remaining to make things a little bit interesting, let's suddenly put our game faces on and start playing some football in the fourth quarter. And there Baylor was, putting up 15 points in the final frame after scoring just 9 in the previous 3 to try to make things interesting, and making things a little bit interesting against Houston by the end of this game. But Houston just too much, in a final touchdown after the game had been tied early in the fourth quarter, put this one away, and Baylor not able to add anything else to their comeback attempt. Instead, Houston pouring water all over any flickers of fire left in this Baylor football program with this second win in Waco in their last 2 trips. Congrats to Willie Fritz and company, 9-3, 6-3 in the Big 12. They'll go to a really nice bowl game. And again, now having beaten Baylor in Waco their last 2 times and spoiling an in-state rival's hopes for a playoff berth. But the joke's on you, Houston, because I think, quite frankly, most Baylor fans are excited about this outcome from the simple standpoint of they don't want to watch this team anymore. As harsh as that may sound, guys are making millions of dollars, so I don't feel so bad being a little bit more negative about the state of things and about the fact that we don't have to be blindly loyal or blindly fans to anything and everything. And so, quite frankly, this is not a team that I, nor I think many other people, including the most ardent of Baylor supporters, really wanted to watch for another game, if we're being as honest as we can be here. Maybe I speak only for myself, but I know that I don't speak only for myself here. No bowl game this year. Another formulaic loss where you try and rally, and you should have done a bit more, I don't know, in the first quarter. In the third quarter, you did a little bit in the second quarter, but you could have done more. Down 17-9 at the half, down 24-9 by the end of the third frame, and then ultimately falling 31-24 after that last Houston touchdown. I mean, it's 1 + 2 = 3. I feel like I've seen this script just with different teams in different locations, although many times in McLean as well. Too many times to count under Dave Aranda at this point. Now, we know the deal. He's still in place and in charge, and we know that Linda Livingstone has come out and said that this is going to be a retainer of Dave Aranda, and that he, without saying this, indicated as much as she possibly could without saying it, that he is going to be back for 2026. Now, I've seen the messages of Linda, just tear the letter up and we'll pretend like it never happened. And I agree that that wouldn't be the worst idea at this point, but it just doesn't seem like an idea she's going to follow through with. So the situation remains what it is. But in the meantime, since that proclamation that was read the way that people wanted to choose to read it, but that to me read as though Dave Aranda is coming back. Since then, not only did they lose their final couple of games and fall short of bowl eligibility, just completely face planning on doing something that could have redeemed this decision to some small degree. They then proceed to, watch this recruiting class completely fall apart. Two major flips for Baylor, or from Baylor, actually, from their 2026 recruiting class over the weekend. After a lot of speculation, Jamarian Carlton, a local product, Big Temple defensive standout from just down the road after multiple visits to Texas in recent weeks, he makes it official, decommitting from Baylor and committing to Texas. And then in a matter of hours, as the weekend of bad news just continued to pile up, and I think that's like 10 consecutive weekends now where it's been seemingly bad news. But after Jamarian Carlton makes his decision, well, another Jamarian was close behind, as Jamarian Vincent, 4-star cornerback, and another local product, is able to go ahead and make the call on his flip as well, and he decides to go to the Michigan Wolverines. So a double whammy, two of the biggest, brightest, and best prospects in this 2026 recruiting class, the types of guys who, when Linda Livingstone's talking in her letter about maintaining the recruiting class, and this is why you'd keep Aranda, like part of the reasoning was that it would be for recruiting purposes, even though all of us that pay attention realize high school recruiting's, for a program like Baylor, at least, that needs to win now, the least important it's probably ever been. They need to spend way more money on proven commodities or guys who have proven a little bit of something versus guys who are just playing the game at this point. And so I don't know how much was invested into the two Jamarians. Would have been great to get two local stars, but I don't know what they were going to do for you in the immediate future. Still, it's very bad optics, and it's extremely bad optics in that regardless of how you feel they would have helped immediately, you basically said that part of the reason why you were keeping this coach is to maintain this good recruiting class. Well, that recruiting class is now fallen apart and fallen several spots and gone from something that you could kind of build around in theory, although still probably not going to see the results of it quickly enough to save jobs. But you sold the idea of trying to keep this thing together as best as it could be, and now you lose two big-time players on the defensive side of the ball, mind you. So much for that recruiting haul. So much for bringing in these local talents. It's just a double and triple whammy from every angle you want to look at it from. And so now you have another loss to Houston, a third consecutive loss, and I believe it is 5 out of your last 6 games that you've lost. You finish one game short of bowl eligibility. Your only wins in the conference came against Oklahoma State, who was awful, Kansas State, who you were fortunate to beat by 1 point at home, and then the drubbing of UCF, who's just not a very good football team. And so that's what you accomplished this year. You did have the win over SMU, but SMU not even playing for the ACC title at this point. You did have their recruiting class, but now that's all crumbling. And I'm just looking around and I'm looking for what there is to be excited about at this point. I feel like this is about as much of a low point as this program has faced since 2017, when they were seemingly at rock bottom following the scandal. The football team was 1-11, and you did at least have the little bit of a ray of hope of having a first-year head coach, whereas in this situation, we're talking about going into year 6 and beyond, and it's just, it is wild to think that we're now going to go into a year 7 with the recruiting class finishing in the middle of the pack and with no sign of being able to hope or help in the immediate future. You've also now, to further flesh things out, announced that Caden Jenkins, who at one point was one of your largest NIL investments, and at one point as a freshman looked like he could be a bright spot, but instead has been quite a dim spot over the last couple of seasons. I guess really enjoying the NIL money or dealing with other things. I don't know, but certainly not becoming the All-American, All-Conference standout that people hoped he would be after his freshman year. You now learn that he has been removed from the team for team violations, off-field issues, whatever the case may be. He had brought his brother in, so you kind of appeased and seemingly satiated his desires to perhaps go elsewhere. And now that's even blown up your face because it turned out that investment wasn't really worth it when all was said and done. And you might as well have just lit that money on fire. So if there's any saving grace here, it's that there is no more football to be played in this 2025 season. Sorry, seniors. Thanks for all you did. Josh Cameron, Sawyer Robertson, Michael Trigg, and so many others. Those guys were going to be missed in green and gold. But I think everybody ready to turn the page on this chapter of Baylor football. Unfortunately, the same author is writing the next chapter as well, and there's not much reason to think the story is going to go in a wildly different direction. And if it goes any direction, the odds are it's going to go further down. So you miss out on a bowl game. You lose your 2 top recruits basically still remaining, although we'll see on a player like, I believe it's Jordan Clay, who might be headed elsewhere. And if they lose him, like that's the bottom basically falling out at this point. But it kind of already feels that way regardless. And now you're kicking off guys who at one point were thought to be the future, but selling the idea of the future, even though guys who are supposed to be a part of the future are now committing to Texas and committing to Michigan. And we'll see when it comes to Jordan Clay, but Washington now making a big push for the 4-star Baylor wide receiver commit and looking like they could lose him as well. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where you go with this right now. You got signing day coming up in just a matter of days, and that will be interesting to see what the class looks like on the other side. But again, losing the guys you've lost and the guys you may still continue to lose, it doesn't change anything about next year in any meaningful way, shape, or form. And there will be coaching changes, whether by coach's own choices or by Dave Aranda's choices. There will be further roster attrition, and one could argue that losing Taden Jenkins and his brother is positively some dismissals or some moving on from that is necessary to turn this thing back in the right direction. But even still, it's a very slow turning of the wheel. It's nothing that changes things overnight. So these small things that you were even trying to latch onto and spin as being positive in retaining Dave Aranda, in a matter of less than a week, those have all basically been set fire to and tossed to the side. And now you look around and you're like, all right, what else do you got? Because it's not the recruiting class anymore. That's not going to be the solver. It's not a returning player like a Caden Jenkins, although maybe it's some other young guys instead. And maybe, again, that's a bright spot. If anything, you can go better utilize that money being paid to Caden Jenkins for a transfer cornerback that actually remains in the starting lineup and plays significant minutes, or for a D lineman that you could desperately use. But everybody else is going to be doing the same thing. So we know more changes are on the horizon, but the changes you saw this past weekend and the results you saw for Baylor football in their final game of 2025, just more salt in a pretty gaping and exposed and painful wound right now for Baylor football fans. And we'll see what happens in the next few days. But, folks, this is a low point that seems to be finding new lows, and you're trying to grasp on for some positives. But the truth is the truth. And meanwhile, Texas Tech and BYU will go play for the Big 12 title this weekend and a spot in the playoff, although Tech's probably going regardless. BYU making a push to retain Kalani Sitake. We'll see if they're able to pull that off. Those two look like they're in strong control of the Big 12 moving forward for a while. And the question for Baylor is, when can you be back in that mix, and what does it take to get in the mix, and how long might it take? Because you look around and there's just not a lot of building blocks. Maybe losing some dead weight is the step forward, but there's a lot more weight to cut, I think, this offseason, and a lot of moves to be made to try and gain some traction. But after losing 2 big-time commits, losing your home finale, losing bowl eligibility, and losing a whole lot of hope for the future, it is what it is right now. And Baylor is a program that continues to flail. They need to hire an AD, and they need to hire an AD quick, but that doesn't look like it's happening in the next few days either. We will see if, in fact, they can close the deal on that soon, but not a lot to report on that front just yet. So we head into the offseason. It's not the offseason people are hoping for, but it might be the most interesting offseason in quite some time. And there is always basketball, although we'll maintain more of a football conversation on these videos. But I don't know what to expect moving forward. More pain seems to be a safe bet. More attrition seems like as much of a big, surefire bet as you could possibly make. But definitely looking over your shoulder as a Baylor fan these days, every single time you look at the news cycle. Until next time, we head into the offseason and what should be a very newsworthy few weeks and months. I'm Craig Smoak. Subscribe to the 365 Sports newsletter at 365sports.video. Find me at Craig Smoak on Twitter, and weekdays 3 to 6 Central on 365 Sports YT. Until next time.